Hello, and welcome to the Humanity, where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tommy. And tonight we will be discussing how Matt and I seem to have different approaches, different emphases, foci, whatever
Okay.
the words are, when it comes to like approaching like issues we have with religion. Of course, specifically Christianity, but this applies to others. Like we seem to take, like I said, focus on different things. Different things seem more important to us to try to point out, and we'll talk about maybe like why and like is one more important than the other? Are they not? Are they both fine? Spoiler alert: they're both fine. But we'll, we'll get into that. But before that, real quick, yes, phlegm and fluids and all that. I just wanted to point out for anyone noticing. Yes, I'm wearing my Ohio State T-shirt to celebrate their football national championship win over them darn Catholics at Notre Dame on Monday night. So, and condolences to my good buddy Richard, who's a big Notre Dame fan, but no,
I
he's
was unaware.
you don't say.
Yeah,
Yeah, that about covers it then. No.
forgot
But
for a second that we were on a podcast.
sometimes I forget too. Sometimes I wonder if even the people watching forget. But yeah. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I'm still going through trying to make sure I share. We are live. All right, cool. I'm also still frustrated to like restream, even though I put the title like in the description altogether before we go live. It doesn't add. It adds the description to the Facebook video, but not the title. I still have no idea why. Still frustrating. So is there,
Maybe if you want to, maybe it's for like if you want to just like tailor the title to the market for that streaming service. I don't know,
yeah.
but
No
still,
idea.
why can't you turn that shit off? Like, I don't
Right.
want your help. Thank you very much.
Right. Ooh, looks like we got someone here early. Good
How they
evening, Benny.
do?
How you doing, buddy? Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of condolences to friends and their football teams, sorry, but not really about the Steelers. But uh, anyway, yeah. So that's tonight. Like I said, there's some aspects about like related to like Ohio State's football team and like their championship and their season and stuff. I had some thoughts on kind of tangentially. One of these days, I'm going to say that word correctly the first time, but not today. Um, Related to kind of the stuff we talk about the show, but I'll be saving that for second drink. For those of you maybe not as familiar, something we're starting this year, trying out to try to make the shows more watchable. um, is we're trying to keep like the first part of it like much more focused on like the topic, and then save like the second part of the show for more just like random banter. But don't worry, the first part will still have plenty of randomness. But so yeah, we call it first drink and second drink. First drink where we hit the topic and hit it hard because it deserves it. Wow, that sounded real dark. I apologize.
Yeah, I thought of Elon Musk when you did that. Don't
Oh
do
man,
that.
I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking about actually.
The Elon in my brain Zeke what you said.
Oh no, but I'm told that that's not what he actually did. That it just looked like it, but it wasn't really. So one of my
Right.
favorite
He
responses to
very
that.
intentionally did something that's not a thing.
Mhm.
I believe that actually. But
Favorite,
it looks like a thing.
right?
And then he can
Or-
say, I'm throwing my heart out to all of you or whatever. And really it's probably to get the is it the ADL? No, not the ADL. AFD, the AFD party, the neo-Nazi party in Germany. He's trying to like spend a lot of money on them to get them to like do his bidding and stuff. and I guess it had like multiple things that worked in his favor in quotes. Um, he gets to prove to the AfD, neo-Nazi party in Germany, that is coming to power, um, trying to like show us his pedigree, his bona fides,
Yep.
street cred.
Yeah.
Also, he gets to troll people by saying that's not what I did, and then a bunch of everybody who knows what he really did, like they'll
even like
they'll get mad at him, and he'll be like, "I didn't even do a thing. Like that's a really bad Sieg Heigl. Wink, wink. That's not even like."
Yeah, where I saw someone posted today, like there was like a German newspaper that basically said like that was a Hitler salute, like, and they showed a picture and they even like cut off like that half of his picture so they wouldn't even show it. So like that's how seriously they're actually taking it in Germany. But my favorite response to it was like, all right, if you don't think that was like the Hitler salute, then try doing it at work today. See what happens. Yeah. Or take a video of yourself doing it and post it on.
Go to a synagogue and do that, and uncomfortable. Yeah, then you know what it was.
Yeah. So anyway,
there was a German news service called Deutsche Welle. They're state-run. Sorry, last thing. They're usually like very dry and like focused and efficient. And then they had the title of that piece, a little video snippet of him doing that in their commentary. They got like sarcastic and snarky, which is really unusual for them.
Nice.
And they're like, was that a Hitler salute, Elon? Said Germany.
Right.
Because this is like a state. Yeah. It's like one of their state-run public news things. So yeah, that was Germany throwing shade on Elon.
Yeah.
All right. It's on.
No, I don't disagree. Elon Musk should be deported and banned from. I mean, Trump seems eager to deport people. So, I mean,
only the dark ones. So, I mean, white immigrants, they're fine.
Yeah, it's like I feel like in a lot of people's mind, they don't even view him as like an immigrant or any like white foreigner. They're like, well, they're not immigrants. They're just
they're just like us.
People who weren't born here but came here later. But they're, that's basically the same. Yeah.
But guess what? If your skin's white, you came here later too. If you're in the United States and your skin is white, right? Yeah, and then like you can't call Native Americans immigrants, unfortunately for the right, and you can't really call African Americans immigrants because like you're really an immigrant if like you didn't have a choice, like
right,
just kind of like you're here now, like that you're not really, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, there was the inauguration, which still just could not stand the irony that was on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But I don't want to get into that. I'm wanting to get started on my beer, but my brain's like not letting me drink it until we get to the part where we say what it is. So
MLK's vision is going to win. We'll get there.
Yep. Well, speaking of getting there, time for first drink. So what is your first drink tonight, Matt?
It's an old brown ale called Stone Fort from Seven Sun. I don't know why I said that like I'm on The Price is Right.
Over under $11.99 for a 6-pack.
No, but it's really good. It's like it's a porter. It's like a portery Odie Brown.
Ooh, I love a good porter.
Yeah, it's pushing porter territory.
Nice. Well, I appreciate that.
Here's the color.
Oh, yeah, that's nice and dark for a brown. So, yeah. So I am back to the like Mad Tree IPA variety pack with their Tree Search. It's hard. to keep track of like which one of these I've had and which ones I haven't, but this is number 14. So viewers, like you can like go back and like watch all the previous episodes to find the other ones where I was drinking one of these and tell me if I've had the number 14 before. Featuring Citra and Chinook hops, two of my favorite varieties. And the yeast is an ale yeast, unlike that other one. I think that was 12 or 13 that had a lager yeast, which was interesting, but yeah. Anyway, speaking of which, also got Kiffany in the house.
How do you do?
Pretend my
Hello.
face is a heart. Then, yeah. So, all right. So, all right. So, yeah, like I said, tonight's topic, something that Matt and I have been like discussing recently. That's really how we get to most of our topics. I could probably start with Matt and I were discussing recently because that's just how we do. I don't know if people pick up on this or not, but it seems like the two of us have like kind of different main focuses that we take when we talk about religion, specifically Christianity, and like the problems we have with it, why we no longer believe, why like we're not necessarily trying to force other people to not believe, but why we'd be kind of cool with it if they didn't, kind of thing. And biggest arc is like Matt texted me the other day, and I guess I'll let you word your words about your thoughts on more of like the effects of these beliefs and like what they do to people. So
I don't remember what I said.
well, would you like me to see if I can find it?
Yeah. I mean, was I sober when I wrote that?
Maybe. Let's see.
Doodle doo doo doodle doo doo.
Oh yeah, you said I'm feeling like I need to shift from countering arguments more to helping people be free from the consequences of them. Speaking of like religion and apologetics and whatnot, it's still worth countering, and that's becoming more like rear guard support. I don't want it to become men fighting shadows cast by the light of wildfire instead of rescuing people. Did that make sense? Kind of. Did that make sense to you? Do you remember typing that?
Yeah, I do now.
Oh, good.
So they're free of the consequences. I think I'm taking like maybe a wider picture on it. Like it does matter, like if it's true or not, and so like countering arguments, like it's still important. So all right, so we're kind of moving into like theocracy kind of stuff, or at least that's the goal. Some degree of that. So in that kind of world or that kind of potential future, I'm kind of thinking about. So if religion gets the government and like a religion or like a singular perspective on it, very focused perspective on it is now in charge, then countering arguments like can become more limited, I think, on what it can impact with the same effort, because it's kind of like that's it's been decided it doesn't matter what's true.
Yeah,
and so like arguing what's true or not may just be seen as less useful to people. But if you can show them that like your life is not better, like then it could be. I think that can be really potent, and especially because I'm trying to find an approach that works for like people who are like all up in mega, and they have kind of like a cultish perspective on things, like a very firm grip on a specific narrative, and like other narratives are impossible. And so like
Right.
when somebody has that thinking, arguing facts with them, they're just like, well, that can't be true because because I don't like it.
Yeah, it's essentially what it boils down to. But yeah.
But if I could say, okay, like if imagine doing this instead, or like you trying to get them to see what, like, okay, that's done good things for you. Here's also what it's doing, and then trying to like point that out,
Mhm.
and hopefully they can't unsee it.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. And wow, and it just like as you were talking, which like by the way, like I said, well put. And I think you do have a talent for like I pointed this out before, but like pointing out like just like describing well like some of the effects, particularly when it comes to like mental and like psychological effects, and like pointing out how a lot of religious language is very either cult like or it's a lot like abusive language, like all the different you know psychological words about things. But yeah, also wanted to point out Jimmy with a couple good points here. Yeah, to be honest, if all Christians were like Fred Rogers and Jimmy Carter, rest in peace, both of those guys.
Yep.
Maybe more recently, obviously. Yeah, but if they were more like them, I wouldn't have a problem with them. Just saying. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I heard two atheists, one Jewish atheist and the other one like humanist atheist. And they had a very similar sentiment to you, Jimmy. There was the hosts on the Majority Report, so lefty internet talk show, and they're like, I got ahead of myself a little bit.
Yeah.
At Trump's like church thing that every new president goes to, and they're somehow they had an Episcopal bishop who's a woman with short hair given the little talk, and then
yeah, I saw that.
Did you see the whole prayer that she?
I didn't see it. I read like the text, like people were posting like the text of it. I was like,
it was like legit humanist stuff, like all of Jesus, but
or a version of him anyway. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what she was going through, and man, she kindly ripped.
Oh yeah. It was beautiful.
Burning coals time. That's what was happening. Burning coals on his head.
Yes. So then his response, sounded like a little butthurt crybaby because of course he had to complain about it.
He all but called her a lesbian.
Yeah. And of course, like because this is how he views things in his version, like she's terrible at her job. It's like,
but these two atheist hosts of this show, they're like, that's a God I wouldn't mind worshiping. Like the God that she was describing.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of world is that God's kind of world? And I was like, yeah, like there's a universal thing we can all agree on. Maybe some people are like, it came from Jesus. Other people are like, I don't know, it came from whatever the Big Bang was. And but we can both agree those are good things to do.
Yeah, like it's like you can argue about where it came from, but it's here. We have it. Yeah. So let's focus on that maybe, but yeah, I think, but as you were talking, like maybe this is something we can get into like a little later after I kind of lay out where I'm coming from, but I wonder if, because we talk about because you can go at a lot of different issues, just go for like the root. Okay, is this actually true, or the like effects of well, how does this actually play out? More consequentialist kind of thinking, and like both like obviously have their places, but I think in the case of religion, there's very like they actually are very intertwined. But this is like a thought I was just having in my head as you were talking, so I'll probably unpack that in a bit.
Yeah, religion and what are very intertwined.
No, in the case of religion, the whole whether or not it's true and what are the consequences of it, basically I guess a little teaser for where my brain was going with that is like based on the claims of of Christianity a lot of them are basically describing certain outcomes and consequences and saying that they should be good. So if you're seeing bad consequences, that actually gets at whether or not it's true as well.
Yeah.
But I may have just said the whole thing right there, but
no,
yeah.
no, you did.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that. I think we have an added complication of Western society has like we just put way more emphasis on truth as a fact, instead of like the meaning is true. And like indigenous cultures, it was more about like the meaning, like it gave everyone the same meaning in their heart because you had the same story. Because facts you got to remember, but meaning is easier to pass on.
Yeah, it just you feel it more, like you know it more, but like in a different way.
Yeah.
But also,
so like I don't think anybody really becomes a believer because they're like, it seems very true. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a deep
like
connection.
People like Josh McDowell and Lee Strobel claim otherwise, but
whatever.
Yeah, but also real quick, Jimmy's a smart dude. I didn't watch the inauguration, neither did I. I was too busy celebrating the birthday and memory of Martin Luther King Jr. Yes, much better use of your time. I was just working because we didn't get that day off, but yeah, good call there, Jimmy.
Yeah, I was listening to the inauguration stuff, and I was, because I wanted to just know how it really was. Like, how bad is it really? Like, I don't want to just hide from it. And so I did that, and I was very much with MLK in mind, looking at like, it's just more people want MLK's picture than Trump's picture. Like, we got this brain fucking fart of history going on right now.
Right? Yeah.
Like, we know where we're gonna get to. We know where it goes eventually because the momentum is there. But there's just like old gerontology, geriatric, like version of America that's just like, I'm not dead yet.
I feel happy. You're not fooling anyone, you know.
Think I'll go for a walk.
It's like, look, could you do this? Yep. Yeah, trimming your toenails and washing your feet is better than watching that orange pile of talking feet. Again, man, cannot disagree with Jimmy tonight. That's for sure. But yeah, so anyway, so I've feel like, you know, when it comes to religion and how we, if you want to say, combat it myself, I know that's what I titled it, but yeah, it's, I don't know. There's a lot of people I'm following on like the YouTubes and whatnot recently, like try to avoid that. But I think a lot of people are just kind of giving into like, it really does help to get more like clickbaity type titles in there. So this is me just kind of like dipping my toe and like I'm using the word combating, you know. But yeah, so I guess we'll see how like if we like just blow up after this, then yeah, or maybe this will get us like more popular as like the Monty Python references. Maybe that's something we definitely need more of.
Yeah,
but yeah, so
you know what? I think that the second Trump term is really America, like old racist America going, I think I'll go for a walk. And it's just like it's gonna be. So you remember in the 1920s and 30s, like the sci-fi from that period?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
It was always, they had this like picture of the future was like very like futuristic, but still kind of mechanical. Like things had rivets and shit. Like,
yeah.
I feel like what we're watching now is a lot of people's like science fiction version of an alternate history of the United States. And they're like, let's go back to that. And they're like trying to recreate this fiction.
Mm-hmm.
that is like
Mhm.
Confederacy, like it's like Confederacy, futuristic sci-fi bullshit.
I mean, were they actually were shooting pterodactyls? Sorry, that's a deep cut for.
But okay, if they get like deep control of our like genetics research and stuff institutions, and you know they're gonna bring back pterodactyls or something and shoot them on an island.
You know, I wouldn't mind like trying some like roast pterodactyl, some like pterodactyl like buffalo wings. That might be pretty tasty, actually. Um, but anyway, um, so yeah, so you as you were saying, like you were telling me, like you feel more drawn to like focusing on the consequences, and also as you were talking, I'm thinking about like maybe like why we take the different approaches that we do, and I'm wondering if part of it actually does have to do with. Well, I mean, obviously, it has to do with our backgrounds, but I think more specifically, like how you were raised more Catholic, I was raised more like fundamentalist evangelical, where because I mean, I'm not. The more I'm learning about Catholicism, the more I'm realizing how unfamiliar with Catholicism I really was. Because growing up Baptist, not exactly an unbiased, accurate view of Catholicism.
Yeah, there's a
But
lot
it's
going on there.
yeah, but it seems to me that Catholic, I think probably go between the two, specifically when it comes to like the Bible and stuff. It seems like yeah, like Catholicism to me, like it makes it seems maybe more geared towards like the outcomes and consequences and what things look like. But whereas like my more like fundamentalist evangelical upbringing was more focused on if it's true or not. Because so I guess the reason like that I approach like when I talk about Christianity specifically and my problems with it, I tend to go more at how it's just apparently like doesn't seem to be true or at least like doesn't make sense, you know, kind of leading towards it not being true because of how little sense it makes. um for lots of reasons, like I said, because that's how I was brought up, like that, like this is the truth. And also like that's really how I got out of it, was basically being unconvinced of how true it was. Because I and when you talk about like, because you were talking about like, you know, like the MAGA cultists and how like to them it's almost like facts don't really matter, so it to you it seems like a much better approach, at least like to start, because like you said, you can, it's not like you have to be like one or the other, or it's not like even that the two of us are just one or the other, like we still like go at it from like several angles. Um but yeah, like I said, some people just facts don't really matter, it really is just about what effects it has, whether they like it or not. But I guess in I mean, obviously, you know, different people are different. So, in my experience, like I said, with me, the truth of it actually was like the crux of
Mhm.
it, because the thing was like I believed it was so true, and I had to believe it's so true. It's like the consequences like didn't matter. Like if what I was believing was like causing issues in my life or like in other people's lives or in my relationships or was making my life harder or like less apparently healthy or whatever, it's like, well, that doesn't matter because this is the truth. So, you know,
Yeah,
damn consequences, like whatever it is, doesn't matter. But then that's kind of, like I said, also how I came out of it, was realizing, oh, all these reasons I thought that I had to believe this was like so super true and everything really aren't good reasons. so, so that's when I started more examining like the consequences of it and saying like, oh yeah, and those are bad too. So
yeah.
it's like losing on both fronts here. Um,
I think.
because yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
um, sorry, yeah, because I think, like I said, because I know there are, like you said, there are those people who don't care about the facts. But I think also there are a lot of people who, if you can show them that it's not true, then they might realize the only, you know, I guess again to specifically talk about, you know, the like hardcore like Christian conservative, you know, MAGA Trumpster, whatever you want to call them. I think for I mean, for some of them, when they look at like the things that Trump and like the other people on the right are trying to do, they're like, yeah, that's maybe that's just what they really want. Maybe they are white supremacists. Maybe they are, national, like Nazis or whatever. But I think with a lot of people, it's like they just feel like, well, this is the side I'm on, so I just kind of have to agree with everything that the people on this side do because this is my side because this is what's true. And the other people, like, they're all like a bunch of liars and crooked and all that. But I think there, and I know, like, a lot of people probably, if they were like completely honest with themselves, they probably say, yeah, I really don't like, a lot of Trump's rhetoric and a lot of the, other that, outside of the, the actual political matters I care about with, the economy and jobs and national security, like all the extra stuff he does. Like, I'm really not a fan of that, but I feel like I still have to, kind of accept it. But if you can show them, like, but if they did get to the point, like, oh, this is actually like not true, even then, like, oh, then I don't need to like try to make excuses for all the other shit that I don't like. I can just say fuck all of it. So, is that making sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, so that's how I kind of feel like how it was like for me with Christianity, because like I said, like there were a lot of things that maybe kind of bugged me about it, or I realized weren't really like sitting well with me, or making my life like more difficult or complicated or confusing or whatever. But I was like, but I have to keep with it because it's true, so I just kind of have to put up with it. But as soon as they're like, oh, it's actually kind of not true, like, oh, great, so I can just get rid of all this other shit too. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about how it's interesting how, like, we have our narratives about. It seems like people's narratives are more important to them than the facts. And
Yep.
and yeah, like the more different than reality your narrative is, the harder it is to let it go because there's a lot of change to make internally. Like it really is almost like stepping through like a portal into a different parallel reality. Um, and I thought it was interesting that, like, um, the facts mattering above, like, maybe anything, but like the facts are the most important. Like what's true in that regard is the most important. Like that narrative for you continued, regardless of what you believed, like religion wise, and how like it did the same for me growing up with, like, in a not especially religious Catholic family. Um, but we described ourselves as Catholic, and it was like a cultural kind of thing. People would talk about priests here and there, or make comments about nuns, or like, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so there was kind of like we evaluated things based on what it did for you or didn't.
Yeah. Well, and there was, I guess, that's one of the things that kind of popped out at me when you said like the whole cultural thing. I mean, because that really is like, because when people say they're a cultural Catholic or even like cultural Christian, like then I guess that in a way is basically saying what matters to me is not the actual like truth of it necessarily, but just the way that it makes my life look. And so much more like the externals. And yeah, so yeah, that makes sense.
But I oddly enough, I am starting to look a lot more at, like, what are the facts of what's happening, because with the it's like within politics right now we have like two very polarized points of view, but our country is split pretty much 50-50. It goes a little bit back and forth, but like statistically 50-50. Polarized 50-50. And
Yeah.
when I was watching people talk about the same news story, like from the left and the right, so I would watch a little bit of Fox News sometimes, and like lefter stuff, and uh, I was realizing that there were some facts about that circumstance that didn't have a narrative around him. You know what I mean? It wasn't part of a story, like a cause and effect story, like where there's a good guy and a bad guy in the story. I realized people could have like some very different narratives about the same fact, and sometimes neither one of them were really seeing the fact of it. Because if you ask yourself, okay, what thing that happened could have caused it to fit into this side's narrative and this side's narrative simultaneously in different ways? It's like then sometimes one of them isn't right, like they're both look at the same thing but not really getting it. And uh, it's like not Trump's fault exactly that we're going fascisty in our country. Like that's what countries like ours in like the phase of capitalism that it's in. Like when the military is doing this kind of thing, like this is what happens next. It didn't have to be a Trump. It could have been somebody else, but
Yeah.
uh,
But he's definitely along for the ride.
like there are facts that are happening, and then you have two major groups of people blaming each other for what's happening. It's like
Yeah.
everybody was behind us getting here. Like, I'm there. Every effect is the cause for what comes after it, and every cause is the effect of what came before it, and it's a chain reaction. And then we're like blaming each other for the chain reaction. Sometimes blaming ourselves, like
yeah. Well, I mean, but I in the defense of still wanting to blame people, I think there's still something to be like you said. Yeah, why we got here. It's not like you can just like point to like one particular side or one person or
yeah,
whatever. But there are definitely some people who are like not helping us not be here.
oh for sure.
Yeah. So
Like you can,
yeah.
like you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
It's like before most wars start, like it can only go in one direction typically. Like Ukraine, well, it's always going to lose this war. Now, like they're probably not going to get any of their land back because they don't have any real leverage anymore. Like the United States isn't their co-signer, so at least not predictably anymore. And that was always going to be the case. The United States was going to be in it for as long as it was in NATO's favor / our favor, and then we were going to get out of it and leave Ukraine holding the bag because that's what happens in proxy wars.
Yeah. Pretty much, unfortunately. Yeah.
uh,
So
so all that death maybe could have been avoided by everybody going, okay, since now that you've invaded, it's probably going to go this way, so let's just skip all the death and yeah.
But I mean,
The Confederacy was never going to win.
What's that?
The Confederacy was never going to win.
Yeah. No.
Like,
yeah. So, but I want to kind of like go back to what you were saying before about how the whole, like whether or not it's actually true. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you use the term like maybe more of like a Western thing, or more just like kind of like modernist European kind of view, because you were talking about, I think particularly like Native Americans and how like their forms of spirituality. Again, I don't remember your words, but basically like the importance of story. And you see that like a lot of like Eastern religions too, where it's like a lot of times they're really not super fundamentalist about, whether it's like their texts or their specific, dogmas or whatever, but it's more about but yeah, like how is this affecting how you're living your life? And like they still like that. I mean, obviously there's still like high importance on like the beliefs because that's kind of like the grounding
Yeah.
for everything. But
But it seemed like also like fine tuning it, getting it as functional as possible seemed to be kind of like part of the goal.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it seems like in that case there was kind of from the beginning a focus on what played best with reality.
yeah, because and I think that's key because like at the end of the day, like this is why I still fall more on the like concerned about like whether or not it's true, aspect of it. Because like there's one quote that I love that I just keep coming back to is from Sam Harris saying like I know of no civilization on earth, and I don't remember the exact words, but it was essentially saying I know of no civilization on earth that ever suffered because they demanded too much evidence in support of their core beliefs. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. Now that is not to say that having the stories doesn't help because I think for one, like obviously those are helpful back, in the days when a lot of these religions were formed, when it's like we didn't have the tools that we have now to actually like more thoroughly examine reality. So these are things like to them, it's like, okay, there's like all this stuff going on. We don't have an explanation or any like real way to really figure it out. So, but it's like we got to do something with it. So now that may be a bit of a crude way to describe like how like religions and or other beliefs like came about, but at least like it seems to me that's like essentially what it was. But so obviously like that's valuable, like if that's all you got. So Bez is now like I guess I wouldn't say that that approach like has no value, but I guess I also like and also like as much as I am a big fan of science and the scientific method and more like naturalistic approaches to like figuring out the world. Like I'm not saying that that's like the only way to do it, and we're certainly by no means have arrived as far as figuring everything out because there's the old saying like the more we figure out, the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know and haven't figured out. you know, but but yeah, I guess there it just to me seems like I don't know if people like I don't know of a good way to put it, but maybe hold on to like that way of thinking as like a basis for like forming like your reality and like view of the world. But maybe it's something we don't need to hold on to still as much as we do. Like I'm thinking of Daniel Dennett's illustration of referring to religion as a nurse crop.
Hmm.
For people who aren't familiar with nurse crops, I wasn't until I heard him explain it. But it's basically like if you're trying to grow one plant, but like it grows better if you plant some other like more mature plant like along with it of a different type. So like it's there to kind of grow up with it and help it until it's like strong and robust enough to survive on its own. But then you can remove the nurse crop and let the thing you're actually growing. So that's kind of how he viewed religion. He's like, yes, at a certain point in our history, like I was mentioning before, it's like that's kind of all we had when it came to like figuring out the world. Like, but now that we have different tools, it's like I don't want to say it's useless now, but at least not to me. It's like not useful in the same way that it was. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah. So here's what I was thinking about while you were talking.
Hmm.
Um, I was thinking about how uh, like the UFO UAP stuff, like the actual like real information that's coming out. Uh, there's like weird overlaps with like spiritual stories,
Mm.
but not really. It's like some of the content of the stories there's overlap with, but not it's I don't know. It's really hard to kind of describe. Um,
I mean,
attributes that people
so
attributes that people gave to angels, like in the Bible, or angel-like creatures, if you're in another faith. Uh, it seems like there are some non-human intelligences that behave like them, um, and sometimes even kind of look, or at least they allow themselves to be seen a particular way. Then it looks like angels would be like like in a statue form on your like grandma's little knickknack thing. You're like, yeah, yeah, it's like it looked like a blonde lady with like wearing like a gown that was glowy and super white, and I could hardly look at it. And then you're just like, the fuck, man, like, like no, for real. And there's this woman, and she's like talking to this one guy, and like the CIA is like, why is she talking to you? We've been trying to talk to her for like forever. And the guy's like, what? Like, he's like, I thought they were going to say I was crazy. And then they're like, yeah, we've been trying to talk to. Basically, they acted like they had been trying to get her attention, and she just came to like this rando guy, and uh, and so they're interviewing him, trying to find out things that they've been trying to find out from, but they had to get a third party now. There's just a lot of weird shit, and it either people had some direct experiences in the past, or they intuited aspects of larger reality, like reality beyond us. Like we're the pinnacle of a part of reality, but like it's not like there can be no more comprehension above us, even if like we don't believe in God. So like we're dogs compared to someone else. Like
yeah.
we could be their pets. They do seem to treat us like we're in their zoo.
Well, as long as they don't like consider me like Harambe, then.
So there's content in these old religious stories that is rhyming a lot with facts now. But but not the really important parts. Like, is there a God? Or does Jesus matter so much though?
Yeah, right.
It's these weird parts, like a bush burning that, like, but it wasn't consumed. Like people have seen things like that. Like, so we're like, that part was true. That was the part of the story that was true.
Of all the things,
everything else was the bullshit to make sense of that. Like,
yeah, interesting. But yeah, and because I think, because like I said, there is definitely an importance to having stories to things. Like, but like as we've discussed before, like the problem is when you lose sight of the fact that your story is just a story. Like
yeah,
the
and you mistake narrative for fact.
Yeah, or the phrase we like, your map is not the territory, kind of thing. So, because that's something like I'm kind of realizing about myself more recently. Because like coming out of Christianity, obviously like a lot of feels, a lot of emotions, a lot of reactions, like being very reactionary and towards a lot of things. So I was like very averse to. Because like I said, for me, that was one of the big things was like realizing like none of this shit is actually true. So the idea of still like holding on to like any of the things, even as just like metaphor or imagery or symbolism, like to me, I was just like very averse to. But I'm starting to come out that a little bit, like because I'm finding like people remember like towards the end of last year, like after the election, one of the things I did was I actually like joined and like made a donation to the Satanic Temple. But then I'm realizing the more I'm thinking about this, about like Satanism. I still don't like consider myself a Satanist, even though I guess I kind of technically officially am, because I even have like the membership card and everything. But I feel like I don't dress well enough to be a Satanist. That's the problem. But I'm finally but I'm loving the imagery around it. And again, I don't know how much of this is having to do with, again, like all these symbols and, the character of Satan himself, like being, growing up, being told like how awful all that stuff is, and now like feeling the freedom, like, oh, I can actually enjoy this stuff now. So it's kind of like, that feeling like when, like you move off to college, like after being like brought up in a very strict home, like being told like, stay away from drugs and alcohol and sex and all that. So like, what do you do when you're off on your own? You stop staying away from all of those things as many ways as you can. That wasn't necessarily my story, because I'm a little too socially awkward for a lot of that, particularly the sex part. So I had no problem continuing to avoid that. But much to my chagrin. But so I think part of it is now like just that whole like being told something's forbidden, but now you have access to it, so you're just kind of wanting to be like all about it. But I mean, so I don't know if that's why I feel more drawn to it, or honestly, just like people know my musical tastes. Really into things like black metal, so like Satan's like a pretty big, influence and like theme and a lot of that. So I think so. There's just for that aspect, I like the imagery and symbols and everything, but an aesthetic and all that. But like more I thought, I was like these are like through like these like symbols and imagery, like it is also like, as we've said before, like Satanists, for the most part, Satanists don't actually believe in an actual Satan. Like there's very like that's really a kind of a very small section of Satanism that are what they call like theistic Satanists. But yeah, for the most part, like they just view like Satan as a symbol for like individuality, or as our buddy Aaron Tomlinson talks about a lot, the left-hand path, or has recently had a lot of really cool stuff. Yeah, look up Aaron Tomlinson on like the Facebook and the YouTube. He had some really cool stuff recently about left-hand path and right-hand path thinking. But yeah, so for whatever reason, like I felt like really drawn towards, that kind of like aesthetic or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, so I'm realizing, like these things, like having some kind of symbol or story to identify with, even without thinking it's literally true, is like still can be like a very important and beneficial, like an important aspect of how you're approaching life and like forming your view of reality and like how you go about things. So yeah, so I guess I'm less down on having like the symbols and the story, but again, just very wary, because I know, especially like here in America, like people don't view it as just a story or just symbols or metaphors. Like that's part of the problem, is how like literally true they take it to be. So yeah, and that's also something I found like I said on my way out, on my way out, like I did take the path of like first realizing, oh, this isn't actually true, but like as you said, like there, and you see this a lot in more like progressive Christianity. Like it's a big part of a lot of people's deconstruction is losing the whole like, well, it's not really about whether it's true or not. It's about like you said, it's about the symbolism or the imagery or the metaphor or whatever, and just how it like helps you out, and like you can like take it or leave, like whatever thoughts or beliefs or practices.
Except for some very like rigid things they're not willing to budge on.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. But then I found out the more I started, kind of dropping a lot of these things, realizing how a lot of the people who like kind of give lip service to that, and and I'm not saying they're being like not genuine about it, but it's maybe they like see that as an ideal. But I think like once you like kind of like really pressed on it, you kind of find like how much they really are like holding on to a lot of those beliefs, and there are definitely things that they're still wanting to believe are true. Because like the more I started saying things like not just being atheist, but also saying things like, and I'm actually like this Jesus guy doesn't actually seem to be all that great either. Like, so when I started pointing about things about him, I was getting a lot of pushback from more like progressive and deconstructing Christians or whatever. So yeah, so I've that yeah, I've talked about that a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. People, they're just afraid still. Still worried about that slippery
Yeah.
slope.
Yeah, because what really bugged me was like all the people who I don't know if this was just if they thought they were genuinely helping me or they thought I appreciated it or if it was really them trying to reassure themselves. But like I would say, yeah, I don't think I believe in God anymore. Like it's like, but I do believe in like things like loving people and nature and beauty and finding my own purpose or whatever in life. But people would respond, oh well, that is God, like because love, that is God, and like beauty, that is God, so you do believe in God. I'm like, did you listen to what I just said? Like, yeah, I guess the way I've put it, like recently, like found words to it. It's not so much. I guess I would say again, going back to the whole like how I was kind of averse to the whole like having the stories and symbolism and metaphors for it, and because I guess feeling like those are more like a crutch or like hindrance to actually finding out what's really true. Again, probably more based on how I saw those things like playing out and being used in my upbringing. But completely lost where I was going with that. Yeah, it's gone.
Okay, well here's something.
Yeah, I'll let you talk.
I'm leaning more towards. I'm like, all right, I'm just giving this out nutty.
Yeah, real quick. I was like, as soon as I lost my train of thought, our viewer count went up. So maybe I should.
That's the key. I think that's the key.
Maybe I should do that more often, as you're saying.
I think there's probably both a God and not a God. And the reason why I say that is because I think it's probably some kind of like combination of the two. Like there's a real thing, I don't know, something above humans, like a consciousness above ours or something. And like it's not God, it's a scientific thing. But like
part of the natural world.
Yeah. Kind of, but you can see how people would mistake it for God. Because like it's not anything like what's below it. And so then you start to realize, oh, God is unfathomable, but it's not God. Sure, but you can see why somebody would like the words to describe God would make sense for this larger reality thing. And it's none like that's gonna suck for religion because they're gonna be like, oh, we were right. Our story was wrong. Like, oh, yeah. It was all about the story. What do we do now?
Right. Yeah, because that's something.
And the atheists are going to be like, they're going to be like, I knew it. It's just our luck.
Yeah, because I think that's something that a lot of like atheists or like non-believers or whatever get a lot of flack for, because like one of the responses that we'll get is just like, oh, so what do you mean like that you don't believe that there's like something, like don't you believe that there's something out there that's bigger than you? Like, come on. I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, but I just believe that there's
have you seen me?
Yeah. I don't know, for people who have not met me in real life, I am not a large person, like but in any dimension except maybe one. Sorry.
Wink.
That was probably the worst wink ever. I don't know what was going on there, but
you're like, I also twitch in my eye.
Just risen with the tism. But so obviously, and I don't know of any atheists who would describe it as they don't think there's anything out there bigger than themselves. Because of course there is. We just think, well, and again, this isn't even all atheists, but speaking for myself, this is more just me as a naturalist, which, a lot of times goes hand in hand with atheism. And I mean, I guess I feel like if you are a naturalist, that maybe automatically means you're an atheist, but being an atheist doesn't automatically make you a naturalist, if that makes sense.
Right. I
Sure.
really want to meet some of these like the wacky atheists who are um, like spirit science or something.
Oh yeah, that blue weirdo. Yeah. Well, I mean, but there's, I guess, like Buddhism, like a lot of forms of that are atheistic. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, literally, because like atheism, it really just refers to like gods. Because like you could literally believe in all the rest of the supernatural stuff. Like you could think there's a heaven and a hell. You could think there's angels and demons and you know jinns or krakens or whatever the fuck or Cthulhu. But as long as you don't think there are any gods, like that's literally all it takes. Or if you're just not convinced there are any gods, that's literally all it takes to be an atheist. But
Yeah.
now, like I said, for the most part, most atheists, at least in my experience, also don't believe in like heaven or hell or angels or demons or a lot of that stuff. Now, but a lot of them still do think that there's something going on that's beyond our understanding. I mean, because even if like the natural world was the natural universe or whatever was all there was, like we don't even understand all the shit on our own planet, or even like all the stuff that's going on inside our own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that doesn't mean it's not natural. I mean, an earthworm doesn't understand like probably anything that we're doing right now, but that doesn't make us supernatural. Now, to the earthworm, if it could, I don't know what level of consciousness earthworms have to the level of like if they can understand that they don't understand what we're doing right now, or if they're even there yet. I don't know, but
I think they're just rolling with it. Like
yeah,
I don't.
I mean, and maybe we could all learn a lesson from that too. But
I mean, earthworms don't have a plan.
mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah. So a few minutes ago, while you were talking, I was like, "Oh, I remembered that thing that I forgot earlier." So I'll wait till Matt's done,
And
then I'll
it.
get to it. I forgot it again. Well, okay. I'm going to try real quick to see if I can jog my own memory again. So we were talking about the people.
I jogged him too hard.
That was fantastically awful, and I appreciate it. I love it. You should do that impression more often. I do. But yeah, so we were talking about so the people who are still trying to tell me, "Oh, but you do believe in God because like that's like love and beauty and all that. That really is God." But I'm like, "Oh yes." So I basically just got to the point where like even if like other people, like the Jordan Petersons of the world would insist that I do actually believe in God, or people who might even describe some of my beliefs or the way I look at life as being like spiritual or some kind of spirituality. I guess the way I've looked at it recently is like I just don't find those terms useful or helpful.
Right.
Like and like I said, it could be like it very well could just be like the baggage I have with a lot of those terms, but as I'm describing, my worldview or how I look at things or whatever, it's like I just don't feel the need to describe any of it as spiritual or describing any of it as like a result of some kind of like higher power or God or higher consciousness or whatever. I'm just like I said, I feel like I'm basically adequately able to express what I think and like look at the world like without using those terms. Like I said, now a lot of the ways I would describe it, other people would say, "Oh, that is spirituality." I'm like, okay, fine. If you want to call it that, I really don't care. But again, it was the people who kept trying to insist, "Oh, but you are spiritual. You do believe in these things." I'm like, that's what really bugged me. So
you're like, I think you've mistaken me for someone who has a problem with what I believe.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe like yourself. Yeah. Mm. So yeah.
It's like if people say to an autistic person, "You don't act autistic," I'm like, "That's supposed to be a compliment." Like, what's happening here?
Like, yeah, it's called masking. Um,
It's like you don't seem autistic. Yeah, and you seemed nicer.
it's like, yeah, you don't seem like an asshole, but uh, oh, that was like saw this meme. I think I shared this with you, but like someone said, like, yeah, someone I told someone my son was autistic, and they're like, oh, he doesn't seem autistic, so so it's like, what am I supposed to like turn to my son? It's like, oh, son, do an autism for the lady. Like,
It's like, is that a compliment? A challenge? Like what?
challenge accepted.
Bah.
Now ask me about one of my special interests and listen to me go on for hours. Yeah, seriously, like someone right now, like ask me about the differences between like black metal and death metal. You will very quickly regret it. So, mm. So I'm getting low on my first drink. Anything else on this particular topic you want to touch on or
Nah. I mean,
broach?
I think reality. We're finding out a lot about like scientific reality. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like beyond where like the stuff we were used to, and there's just the phrase "reality is stranger than fiction." Like, I think we're in a period where like reality sounds like fiction. I think like
Yeah.
everyone
Well,
can say that like on both sides of the political
mm-hmm.
divide. Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and this even like scientifically, the more we're learning about like whether it's like through like quantum physics and mechanics or like just the way our brains work and like how they process information, it's basically you could that might be a way to put it is like our version of reality is a fiction. Like
yeah,
it's so like a story that our brain is telling ourselves like but I mean it works, it like helps, so like whatever it is going on, like you know when I look and I see like this glass of beer and I drink it and I have these experiences, like okay, yes, like these experiences I have like made like are obviously like not necessarily like accurate representations of whatever's going on, but there's something going on that my the stories that I'm telling myself are helping me navigate whatever reality this actually is. And that's one of my issues with the more I guess like religious folks of all stripes, but I guess particularly on the more like progressive end even where because it's almost like they take that notion of like, well, you know, we don't have an accurate view of reality, so how can we say we really understand things? Like, yes, true, but then it's like, so that means you can't say that there is no God or no supernatural. So it's like they still try to like kind of sneak that in somehow, but
it's
I'm like,
like kind of true. However, we can say if certain things were true, our reality would look like this, and it doesn't. So that
right.
can't be true.
Oh, yeah, so that's something else like thing from earlier I still want to like circle back to before we finish up with this topic, but to me it's the way I view like these things like religions or like what a lot of people might even call spirituality is like, so yes, these were stories to describe reality, but the more we're learning about reality is that it's very different than the reality we thought was reality. How like say reality one more time. Back when we came up with these like different religions and like
Yeah,
stories about gods and whatever, so it's like all these stories were invented to describe a reality that we're now realizing isn't even real. So how can people then turn that into, oh well, that we don't understand reality, that means you don't you may think you understand reality enough to say there is no God or supernatural, but I'm having trouble with words. Is this making sense?
Yeah. So here's the thing.
where my frustration is. Yeah.
So like there's a universe, which is a singular thing made up of lots of other little things. And
Mm-hmm.
so in humans, we're not the universe. This is very basic. So we're not the universe. But there's probably something
Yeah.
something
Sean Carroll, if you're watching, please confirm.
there's probably something that is aware, that is like more advanced than us, but also isn't the universe. And like that's kind of like a demigod, or at least that's how we would experience it. Um, uh, I mean, like how much more advanced can a being get if you have like millions of years more than us? Like, are they even still like physical forms? Did they upload themselves to something? Did they figure out how to like use the universe as a USB drive, and now they're just like living in the universe, like on some like it's like a programming platform?
Mm. Yeah, and then they're just like burning CDs of themselves and whatever that actually would mean. Yeah. All right, but I so.
Oh wait, I was gonna say one more thing.
I was just going to say, like, as soon as you're done with your thing, is even though before I was saying I was wanting to wrap up the topic, I thought of more things I want to talk about on the topic. So, go.
Okay, all right. So you know how stuff exists, right? Physical things.
I think I do.
They exist. Matter is a form of energy. It's energy in matter shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there matter? Well, because the speed of light, because light has a speed limit. That's why energy can be matter.
Hmm. Weird.
But for E to equal mc squared, it has to, E has to equal mass times speed of light times speed of light. So mass is getting multiplied times the speed of light, and then the product of that is getting multiplied by the speed of light. So it's like the speed of light within the speed of light is why there is anything. Like, if there wasn't that one limit, nothing would exist.
Yeah.
Now, in another universe, the speed of light could have a different speed, and that probably changes physics drastically. But they probably still have a physics.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hell? Like, none of this really exists. It's all just the energy that is underneath everything. Like, and what is energy? It's the potential for work. So energy's nothing. It's not a thing.
Yeah, but it has potential.
It's just potential.
Yeah.
And then when you put a limit on it, potential is a thing.
Ooh. Yes. So,
hence, that's why religion is good, because it puts limits on things. Somebody would argue
that. Don't you dare.
That's why we have the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, I was thinking about those today, like this off topic, but how like people are wanting those like still put up in like courthouses or schools or whatever. It's like, I guarantee you, like most of the people who are wanting the 10 Commandments put in public places, like never even like read them or probably don't have them up in their homes. Cause if they actually were as vital and crucial to everyday life as these people are making them sound like they should be, like, then it's like they should have them like up in their homes and they're reading them and reciting them every day. And like, but they're not, but
and they don't know that half of them are like how to run a was it Bronze Age?
Yeah, I think so.
It's like how to run a Bronze Age society. That was like the half of it.
And also, like according to the 10th commandment, women are property. But again, that's a whole
But it
other.
doesn't say that, Tommy. It just lumps them in with other things that are
Yeah.
also property.
Yeah, it doesn't say it because it's just assumed. Like they didn't need it. Just it went without saying. But anyway,
It's when it's just
so
like you're like, I don't think you know how words work.
right, yeah. So, but I guess to kind of wrap up the topic about like our approaches about like, okay, is it true? What are the effects? But like I was saying earlier, how I feel like in the specific case of like religion and the way it's presented and the claims that it makes, I think whether or not it's true is like very, very connected to the outcomes just because of the nature
Mhm.
of what religions claim. They say, oh, if you do these things, then this will happen. It's like, so people like to say, like, oh, religion and science and like, they're like two completely different things. But the thing is, like, religions make claims about reality that should be scientifically evident, like one way or the other.
Yeah, I think
You
religion
know?
was proto science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, because at the time, like that was the best we could do. So I mean, certainly,
Like,
like,
what story works the best? And then they're
mhm,
like, well,
yeah,
that's probably the closest to the truth. But like,
yeah. But like I said, that's the best they could do. So no shade. But the problem is now, like again, feeling like we still need to hold on to it. But it's like again, like hold on to like the stories and like whatever inspiration you get from it. If it helps you like live a better life, be a better person, happier, more filled, whatever. But yeah, but just don't lose sight of the fact like this is a story. And which again, on a certain level, so is a lot of the things we discover in science. Sure, fair enough, but yeah, 'cause I'm sure like a couple thousand years from now, humans will look back on where we are now, even with our scientific ways of thinking and discoveries, and like kind of laugh at how primitive we seem to them. Like, sure, but yeah,
I mean,
but
dude, a
I
lot of our
mean,
body parts can be swapped out with the cows. So, I mean, we're not that advanced. Like, if you're in a pinch, you can use cow blood to transfuse into a human. Learned that recently.
interesting.
I was like,
Hmm.
that's kind of unflattering. Get this animal that like four stomachs and shits on his back legs, like, like neat.
Like, we're not that different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like
Uh,
human and pig organs, like pigs aren't even on.
yeah.
They're on like a totally different branch of the evolutionary thing, but like our organs are kind of interchangeable.
Oh yeah, I mean that's why like pig carcasses are used in like ballistic tests and things,
Hmm.
like because I guess anatomically they're close enough to a human, so if they can like you know fire a howitzer or something, they're like, what will this do to a human body? Let's try a pig. You know.
I burnt my finger once with a soldering iron. Um,
Well, yeah.
hurt like fucking hell, and so I went to
Go
the
back to the
ER.
previous few days. Yeah.
I went to the ER because I was like, oh, like, you're like, I don't want to feel like a wuss, but I mean, but like, this hurts so bad. Like, I can't do anything. I can't think straight at all. Um, but when it happened, I, my skin smelled like roast pork,
Hmm.
and it like made me hungry. And I told the nurse that at the ER. And all that happened was she stopped what she was doing. And then she like whatever she was doing, she suddenly was doing it a lot slower while she processed, and then she said nothing, and I was like,
Fair
"Yeah,
enough.
they probably think I'm a cannibal just trying to get pain meds."
Clearly. Yeah. So yeah, stories. Have them if you want. Like I'm still probably going to continue the approach of because I think it's important, like whether or not all these
Yeah.
like religious claims are true. But again, like I said, I love how not just how you emphasize, but I think also just how well you can explain like the different effects, particularly when it comes to like psychological and emotional health and things like that. All the things that like these beliefs, whether they're Christian or otherwise, like really have like very real and tangible like negative effects on people's life and health and all that. Which again, pretty contrary to the claims of Christianity and how it's supposed to like help and improve your life and your spirit and all that.
Yep.
So to me, again, like that's how I see how the two are so connected. It's like because you can point to the outcomes and consequences as evidence for how it's probably not that true. So
Yeah. Also, from talking
Oh,
to
yeah.
my mom about politics stuff, because she's into Trump,
Mm,
and I realized that like I had heard it. People have said that facts don't matter. Like when you're talking to somebody who's
mhm.
like really bought into something,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so like seeing how facts don't matter to some people, I realized that I didn't I didn't have anything else. Like I didn't have anything else to go on to be like,
Yeah.
because I can't just keep insisting on the truth. Like,
Mhm.
because you're
Yeah.
like, no, I don't believe that because it didn't come from my sources or I didn't see it on the TV.
Yeah. Hmm. Yep. Or it's just not what I was raised with, or
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's the same with like a lot of people who are very fundamentalist about their religion as well. That's why like one of my favorite like conversion and then rapid deconversion stories from one of my favorite YouTubers, Aaron Ra. People not familiar with him, look him up. ARONRA. Aaron
he's
Ra.
he's a lot to handle.
Yeah, he's not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. Like seems like by all accounts, like in real life, like great dude,
Yeah.
but but
Just
he's very passionate. Just say, but also like super
he
smart.
looks
Like
kind of like the garbage heap from Fraggle Rock.
if the garbage heap was a Satanist, that's kind of his vibe. Yeah,
Yeah.
or he's a self-described Disney villain, I think.
Yeah. Oh, for
But
sure.
anyway, so he likes to say how he was a believer for about 5 minutes because he was like with his pastor or whatever. He had this experience and he believed. He was like super on fire. Like it was like this very like heavy spiritual experience that he had. And it's like I believe. But then he said like while he was in the midst of this like euphoric feeling, like he asked like the pastor or whatever, like, oh, this is great, but like how do I know this is real, like what I'm feeling right now? And his pastor has basically said like, well, don't think about it, just keep believing it and it'll become true or something like that. And he said like, and then I immediately stopped believing because I was like, that's bullshit. So yeah, one of my favorite testimonies, as it were. Have you heard him talk about that?
No.
Uh, But yeah, because he talks about like a lot of conversations he has with people, like where he'll like point out facts, like no, what you believe is like literally like demonstrably untrue, whether it's about like science or whatever. And it was like, well, but I just believe it anyway. And he's
Yeah.
like, you know, yeah.
But
So
it does like the more firmly you believe it, the more real it does become for you. But then
mm,
that's when you start to mistake like your narrative or your map for the territory. Um,
yep, yep,
because now you can only tell the difference between things within your narrative, and anything outside of that is deception or whatever. And
mm,
you often truly don't have anywhere to put it in your narrative. Um,
yeah,
so that's why it feels like deception and like an evil cloudiness. It's because you're trying to see what's really happening, but it doesn't
mm,
fit your picture.
right, right. And another thing like related to that, at least in my brain, because it made me think of it. that I've been thinking about a lot recently is it's like when people talk about like particularly their faith and how they say, well, you can't prove or disprove it, that whole like, faith and science and what you can really prove or disprove is like, it's like, and again, speaking from my experience in Christianity, sure, this is probably true in other religions and beliefs as well, but, this is really all I can, speak on. Um, but the whole importance and glorification of just having faith, like even they'll even say sometimes like despite the evidence, despite your circumstances, but despite what seems to be true, like you just believe just because, and that's why faith is important. It's like, okay, but and they say, well, you can't prove it's true or not. It's like, okay, well then how do you choose what to believe? Because like if you're not going to examine whether it's actually true or not, then why not be a Muslim? Why not be a Buddhist? Why not be Hindu? Why not be Shinto? Like, why not be an atheist? Like if
Why throw your whole life behind something that might be true?
Yeah,
but
which
like,
I mean,
also could as easily not be, or be very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, like I said, if like people say, well, it just works for me, or it's like, okay, then I'll say I'm not telling you what to do, but maybe I am. Like, but examine like what is it that's actually working for you and why? Like, is it just like, so people say like, well, with Christianity, you have like this big sense of community and like love for other people. It's like, okay, but can you have those things without like all the like other Christianity parts? Like,
And it's often conditional love too.
Yeah.
Everybody tells themselves and each other that it's unconditional.
Nope. But anyway, but just have the honesty to look at it as like, okay, like what is it you really believe in? It's like, do you believe in God and like God is love and like that's why I believe in God? Like, or do you just believe in love and like the importance of loving other people and you're just attaching this like God image to it and putting all the importance on that? Yeah. Like I said, any beliefs worth having are worth questioning and examining. And like, as we like to say, like if your beliefs were not true, would you want to know? And if you're not willing to examine them enough, like then how can you know? Like, and again, like I said, why believe those specific beliefs if you're not even willing to examine it? Why not believe something else? Because yeah.
And believing false things or having cognitive dissonance, like it, a lot of mental health problems are based in cognitive dissonance.
Oh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or being like your or being like your own harsh critic, and then that's usually wrapped up in like pictures of reality that are off or negative.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's true has real consequences.
Yeah. And I think Kiff here like pretty well described at least a lot of my experiences with church. Like, we love you just the way you are. Now change.
Like, we love you just the way they are, but you'd be cooler if.
Or really, Jesus would love you. Like, Jesus loves you, but he'd love you more.
Rooms in my father's mansion and all. You want those better rooms.
Right? God, fucking damn it. Yeah.
I was like, I thought we all got the same prize. Now I need to be worried about not like being Christian enough. Like,
yeah. But Kiff, like, you may appreciate this. It's making me think of Home Street Home. If that one of the Ragged and Drape songs from back in the day. See the signs on the streets that say Jesus saves, but you're wondering who. Yeah. Anyway, tip your hat and you're never going back. That was my story anyway. All right. Cool. All right. Well, I'm ready for like literal and figurative second drink.
Let's do it.
All right. So
I'll actually go here.
Uh, and thank you for that, Kif. Um, so yeah, so you usually go first, but this time I'm going first. Damn it! It's my second drink, also from Mad Tree, from the same box. They're Seeing Colors, hazy IPA. It's just tasty and hazy. Um, Not really colorful. I don't know what the Seeing Colors was all about.
No, it's not dank enough either. I think they.
Yeah, no,
I
they
don't.
have like different versions of it. Like there's a double, there's a juicy, like everything comes in juicy anymore.
That's what
But
she said. What? um. Yeah, the double Seeing Colors is pretty good. So I'm
I haven't had that
drinking
one.
Higher Purpose Milk Stout from Third Eye.
Ooh.
They're locals
Mm-hmm.
hereabouts. Are they from
Like
like actual
whereabouts? Here?
Cincinnati? No, Hamilton, Ohio. Yeah, I knew they're not quite Cincinnati.
Wow, wow, something good out of Hamilton. Other than my dad, I'd never heard of that. Oh, man.
Yeah, Hamilton's
Yeah,
interesting.
in his defense, he wasn't born in Hamilton. He was actually born in Chicago. But
Started
yeah,
by transplanted Kentuckians.
ooh,
The town, not the beer.
yeah. Which is also like growing up, we actually called it Hamil. We affectionately called it Hamiltucky.
No, because it's so true. Yeah, it seems like 471, goes like Covington, Newport, and then Hamilton.
Yeah,
471 is a local circle-ish highway. It's more like a crescent.
yeah. It's one of those like interstates. It's like yeah, it's kind of a anyway. It's all I know is like I think the bridge going south from downtown is still closed because someone like set something on fire below it. Yeah.
Yeah, started a tire fire that
Ooh.
then like somehow got heat
Hmm.
damage to the bridge, which is not super close to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 50
Uh,
feet up or something.
yeah, it's pretty high, but yeah, so it must have been a hell of a fire. Now, Kiff with the good callback to that pastor at the church service that Trump attended. Like, yeah, if your Christianity causes you to be offended by someone asking the most powerful person in the country to be merciful towards the powerless, then you have profoundly misunderstood the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of his. That was kind of his thing. Was speaking the truth to the power, or at least as written. Which stories, real, whatever. But this story
Also,
as written, yeah,
if you needed JD's face to do a thing to make it like want you to make you want to punch it more, watching him, watching him while she was talking, he's like kind of rolling his eyes, and he knows he's on camera, so he's restraining himself,
Mhm.
and he's like,
Yeah.
oh, it kind of like leans over to his wife. Have you seen this footage?
I haven't. No, I
No,
haven't seen.
he's kind of like says something like, "You believe this shit" or something like that, and she's just like, "You better shut the fuck up and face forward," and like she just like her face doesn't move, her head barely twitches, but like you can see it when I get her eyes or something. She's just kind of like she's pulling a Marge Simpson noise or something,
Oh, that's fantastic.
and then he's
Yeah,
like,
because
he just looks like just an angry 15-year-old.
yeah, because all right, so go back to what Kiff said, and thanks for mentioning that because it's like jogging all things in my head brain, um, as opposed to my elbow brain. No, sorry.
The
This.
brain's connected
Um,
to your head brain.
oh, let's find out. But yeah, but the whole like speaking truth to power kind of thing. This goes back to something like, and I wish I could find like really I'm looking for this in meme form. So if someone knows where it is or can make it for me, there was something that one of my favorite critical biblical scholars, Dr. Kip Davis, he was talking about how a lot of parts of the Bible are apocalyptic literature, and I view that like that's really like a lot of even like with Jesus and his teachings is like in my opinion, yes, Jesus was a real historical person, but to me, he just seemed like basically an apocalyptic prophet slash cult leader, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I think he was, if he actually said like some of the words that are attributed to him, when he says like, this generation shall not pass away before they see, the coming of the Son of Man on the clouds or whatever. It's like, and I think even Paul was this way. Like, they thought the world was about to end. Like, that's, to me, that's what they were thinking. So I think a lot. So if you kind of view a lot of his teachings like in that light, I think some of it's still like kind of worth keeping around, but I think it definitely colors a lot of it very differently. But anyway, so Dr. Kip Davis was talking about like apocalyptic.
I just pictured Mrs. White from the movie Clue talking about Jesus. I'm afraid it came as a great shock to him when he died. He was always a rather stupidly optimistic man.
It's like just made him so mad. Just flames on the side of his face. Get off me. Anyway, so yeah, apocalyptic literature. Dr. Kip Davis talking about the problem is like with like the people, like at least here in America, like the Christians are basically in power, whether they want to admit it or not. I mean, it's like to be a Christian in America is to hold privilege. Like, no disputing that, or at least there shouldn't be. But the problem is apocalypse. So we have these Christians who are in power who are like holding on to this Bible, which contains so much apocalyptic literature. And apocalyptic literature, in its essence and its origins, is really the literature of the oppressed. And it's them, like some people describe it as essentially like fan fiction. It's like, okay, like, and so in the case of like Jesus and Paul and like the New Testament, it was Rome. Like, okay, they're the ones oppressing us, but we're going to write all these books about how, well, God's going to come back and like, settle their hash or whatever that saying is. I don't know.
Kind of hash it out.
Yeah.
It's going to simmer their hash.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's basically the powerless just like crying out like, well, this is what should be happening to take down those, mean people or whatever. But now that we have the people in power in this country are still basically identifying with this literature of the oppressed and viewing themselves as the oppressed, which is super problematic. But then look at the people who they're trying to turn it on and say are oppressing them. Like, I know I've said this before, but like look at every single person, like particularly the like conservative, like religious right, whatever, are saying are the ones ruining America. Pretty much every group that they point to are like a minority or unprivileged group of some kind, whether it's women, whether it's the gays, trans, anyone in the LGBTQIA plus community, immigrants, minorities. It's like literally like the least powerful people in our society are the ones they are saying are the ones oppressing us. And then they got their book to back them up because they're like, oh, see, this is how we should be like treating and acting towards all these people who are being wrong to us. It's like, so that's, so as Dr. Kip Davis said, he's like, that is a recipe for a disaster. And that's exactly what we're seeing play out. Like I said, I wish like he said that like in the middle of this super long, like live stream or interview or something. I'm wishing I could find a more like concise, more like shareable thing of that, because I think that's so brilliant and it's something that a lot of people really need to hear. So like, why aren't more people watching this right now to hear me say this? So as I complain about only hearing that in the middle of a very long like live stream interview, so I figure so I'll share it in the middle of another long live stream. That
it's almost like Christianity was never supposed to mix with government or power.
Yeah,
like it was the religion of the oppressed, and then you mixed it with
again, like I said, to be fair, they didn't think whatever governments or power were even going to exist for very much longer. But yeah, still.
Now,
See, now speaking of the things that Jesus said that I think are worthwhile, yeah. So if we were called to forgive 7 times 70, and also like for the people at home who like to take things super literally, like Jesus wasn't giving an exact number, like that was again figurative, basically meaning just a lot, just keep doing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that's also and the a lot is also perfection, like
Hmm. Yeah,
because the
yeah. The
seven
reason
number is
he used,
number of
yeah, yeah,
completion,
the seven.
perfection,
Mm-hmm.
and then also 70 being a multiple of 10. There's something about the number 10, but I forget.
Right. Yeah.
It was
But
like
yeah,
a
any other
stability
take
number or something.
Yeah. Now, this, like, I don't want to get into this tonight, even though we are in like second drink or we're in the more random, but I have more specific random things I want to get to because that's how my brain works. I don't know if this is something we've talked about, Matt, but I don't know if this is something maybe we could do like on another night. Just the idea of forgiveness
Hmm.
and how I'm kind of starting to think it's maybe overrated. I'm not saying it's
Yeah,
unimportant, but this whole like always forgive, I'm like, maybe not.
there's
I don't know.
so there's this awesome little documentary I watched years ago. It had to do with had it. I think the impetus for, and this was in there in the documentary too, for the film was the shooting that happened in the autistic school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kif's on board. Not with the
Autistic.
shooting. With
Did I say
sorry.
autistic?
Sorry.
I meant Amish.
Ah. Yeah. Okay.
In the
I know what you're
Amish
talking
school.
about now. Yeah.
Um, and they so the Amish people like forgive people as an obligation. Like
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah. Like they like
other
say what you want
people.
about the Amish, but like they take that shit seriously. Like
And
yeah.
so there was discussion about like whether or not that was actually forgiveness because it's not an obligation, and like
Ah.
they do it even if they don't want to, and they think they want to because it's part of their belief system. But is that real forgiveness? And then the idea of forgiving you. So a lot of people had problems with the idea of forgiving someone for their sins against someone else. And they're like, that's
Yes.
not your forgiveness to give.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep. Yep. Yeah. That's another good point.
and like you can forgive yourself for doing it if if you have a change of heart later or you see things differently, then like you can forgive yourself to what you did to you, having yourself do that. Like the damage that does to a person doing something like that.
Mm.
We're also very damaged in the first place
Yeah.
to do that. Um, but like, can't. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, this is also something I'm realizing more like not just coming out of Christianity, but also realizing how very neurodivergent and in what ways I probably am. Like looking back, like even like the concept of forgiveness, honestly, is something that like just never really actually made sense to me. Like I didn't really understand like I understand like conceptual or maybe more just like the effects. Oh, it means you just don't hold it against. But as far as like the actual mechanics of actually doing it, like within my own mind, like I don't really know what that means. Or I'm really realizing there's just so many things about Christianity that I just really did not understand like what it really meant or how it worked. Like maybe this is something else we could talk about more. It was like one that was like a big thing for me was that whole like, oh, just cast all your cares upon Jesus, and, like just give all your troubles to God. It was like, okay, but how? Like I don't other than just saying Jesus, take my troubles. Like I don't like because I'm trying to like picture in my mind like okay, put all my things in a bag or box. I don't even know whether to use a bag or a box. Am
Yeah.
I doing this wrong?
I mean, if God's not going to
Like,
take them, if God's not going to take them after you offer them, then what's left is you have to like figure out how to give them over or like put them out of your mind, which means then you kind
yeah,
of dissociate from your problems, or
yeah,
bury it, like wall it up in your mind somewhere, and that's not good for people.
Ooh. So that might be fun. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely enjoy your input, Kif. Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah.
That's what I've said. Like, that's something we definitely want to get back to again soon is like having guests. Like, we have a couple like new guests, but also I think probably everyone we've had on the show so far, including Kif, like
Hmm.
are all people we'd love to have on again sometime. So yeah, we'll be in touch. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I never got some of
well,
that stuff. Um,
yeah,
the experiential stuff, like I could relate to that once I had it, but
yeah, at some point, yeah. But that was like decades for me before I even had that. But yeah,
it's like, what if like, the neurodivergent thing is like, what if I'm like not holding it against them, but like I can't stop thinking about it. Like,
right, yeah.
yeah, uh,
Like, wait, have I forgiven them? It's like, oh no.
yeah.
Because then there's also that like, well, to whatever degree you forgive others, God will forgive you. It's like, shit, I don't know if I'm forgiving anyone.
It's like, does that mean I can't be mad anymore? Like, does that mean like I need to be over it? Because I really think forgiveness is a process. I don't forgiveness as an event or like a thing that you do. Like, I'm gonna go do a forgiveness. Like, I
Uh-huh.
it often feels like a way to pretend that you're doing it. Like, a way to pretend that you're forgiving someone. You're like, oh, if I do
Yeah.
this, then I really do forgive, right? Like,
But then you also like speaking of pretending, that at least for me, like there's the added layer of feeling like on some level everything socially I do is pretending on some in some way. But yeah, see, I enjoyed that thing you said as well. So I'm glad someone else enjoyed that thing.
I was thinking of forgiving my ex-wife, because
Ah,
that was a process.
yep, I can relate. Can relate.
uh,
Because I'm still trying to forgive your ex-wife too. No, I'm trying to forgive her for making me be attracted to her while she was with you, and I was upset.
well,
So
you know what it was, but I think you could sense it, but you didn't really know for sure. You know that Madeline Kahn scene where she's like, "Get off me," and you're like, "I am in. I'm just in." and like whatever she's selling, I'm in. And
hmm
but that was very much the vibe of my ex-wife. Get off me.
it's
But
like
that
interesting.
that kind of bossiness. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So also, like, I guess if you can forgive me, because I think I've told you this story. Like the very first time I ever saw you, I actually like immediately disliked you because first I saw her, I was like, oh, she seems cute. Oh, she's with him. He sucks. So my apologies. I think we got over it. We seem to be getting along. I think. So,
yeah,
or
she
I
was
say
a
we.
she
I
was a
got it.
Trojan horse.
All right. Well, before we're on this topic too long, and I start getting tempted to talk about like ex-wife stuff. Um. So
Speaking of horses, I don't know.
no, she grew up on a farm, but it had cows, not horses.
That's right.
Um, which are basically people, as we learned earlier. So, um,
Tasty people.
the tastiest. Not that I would know. What was anyway? So,
Why don't we eat cow ribs?
there are beef ribs. They're just not as popular because, like, first of all, like one beef rib is basically like the size of a steak, so it's not like you can get like a rack or whatever. But yeah, and also like with beef as like compared to pork, this is something you also see in like beef bacon. Like the meat and the fat and pork are a lot more like marbled and kind of like
Hmm.
mixed. But like with beef, it's just like fat meat, like it's very like distinct. So
Gotcha.
yeah, but yeah. So anyway, so something I've been wanting to talk about real quick now that we're in the second drink phase. So I think I've mentioned before, like, so recently my life has been taken over by Elden Ring for my fellow gamer fans. So
Isn't that what Elon plays? What's that?
it better not be. Don't tell me he does, or I'll probably look, or I can just look at. I'm probably better at it than he is. So for anyone who's familiar with Elden Ring,
Well, he
like,
he did get caught for paying people to level up his characters in whatever game
right?
it was.
Yeah, I heard about that stuff, but yeah, so I'm definitely, yeah. Anyway,
Chode.
to put it, yeah. So to put it in perspective, so first of all, I know I've been playing it way too much, according to other people, not according to me. I've been playing it a perfectly appropriate amount. But yeah, it was a Christmas present I got to myself, which I opened early on Christmas Eve. So since Christmas Eve, I counted up the number. I don't remember the number of hours. I just remember it worked out to like just over like 6 days. Is how long I've been playing it in just under a month. And just today, I for people who are familiar with the game, I finally set fire to the Erd tree and defeated Godwin.
Nice.
But you have
That
no
sounds
idea.
cool. I don't know. Yeah, it sounds cool.
But one of the things I love about these games, so they're made by the same people who made like the Dark Souls series, Bloodborne, Demon Souls, Sekiro. They're affectionately referred to as the Soulsborne family of games or whatever, from the company From Software. They're games that are like notorious for being like difficult, but also like the lore and like the story in these games are like super interesting, but also like super dense, but also not very obvious or apparent. And I found out the reason. So the guy behind a lot of these games, his name's Miyazaki. It's a Japanese company, but and he said the reason that he writes the story for these games like so vaguely and so like so much like that you kind of have to piece together yourself, and like it's all like very hidden and like item descriptions, or like if you pick up a sword you gotta like read the description and then it'll tell you about like its history, and that'll kind of give you some insight to certain characters or whatever, or like the reason you find certain enemies in certain areas of the world and why not in other places. Like, so cool. But he says is like, so like he's Japanese and he grew up, I guess he knew some English but wasn't completely fluent, like, but he was obsessed with like English fantasy novels and stuff, so he'd be reading these books in English, but he wasn't fluent enough in it to get all of it, so he would only be getting the story in bits and pieces, and he would kind of have to fill in the gaps himself. So that's how he wrote the games, which I think is so awesome. But like I said, everything about the game is like the reason that every single thing is there or not in certain places is for a very specific reason. There's this one example that I found out recently about Elden Ring. So if people have played it, like, it's an open world game and like has various like different checkpoints and places you can save at and rest at or fast travel to or whatever. But in places like around usually where there's like a boss fight or other like more like difficult like enemy encounter, there'll be these little statues, and they're called like stakes of America. America is like one of the main goddesses or whatever in the world. So
is it spelled like America?
But it's Marika. They're like, so anyway, so there's these little statues. So basically, if you die in like the boss fight or whatever, then you start over at where that statue is. So it's usually like a lot closer than whatever like the normal checkpoints are, except in this one area of the game. But because due to the lore, like the people in this area like did not honor this goddess, so there are just none of these statues anywhere. So that means like in the boss fight in this area, you got to start like way the fuck far away, and it's a super annoying like run back. So I love that they were like so committed to the lore that that even like negatively affected the gameplay because of like how. So even though like I hate that, I love the detail, the thought they put into it. But yeah, so just that one area, like the boss run back is so much more difficult than like literally everywhere else in the game. But just because in the story those characters don't like that particular goddess, so they don't have her statues anywhere. So So anyway, yeah, that's been taking over my life. Thank you for allowing me to rant on that for a while. Now, now back to another conversation I was like teasing earlier, related to the Ohio State thing, and I wanted to get this is something I wanted to get your thoughts on, Matt.
Okay.
So one of the things, and this has been kind of like the storyline for Ohio State's team this season, is how vocal a lot of their players have been about like their faith, and, like Christianity, and like to the point where like even like announcers like on ESPN or Fox or whoever is like showing their games, like when they're talking about the games coming up, they'll even like during the game they on many occasions brought up like the players' like faith and how expressive they've been about it, and how that's kind of like brought them together as a team, like and of course like in like post game interviews, like you see like all the guys like more than just your usual, just like, oh, just wanted to thank God for this, like just being like very explicit, like all glory to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, like it's because of him. It's like how, but so
Yeah,
first of
they're
all,
getting
there's
louder.
yeah, so first of all, there's just the aspect of like this phenomenon where it seems to me where it's almost, it doesn't even matter like what exactly the person is saying about Jesus or whatever, but like some people just seem to just so like basically get off on the fact that these people are just even saying Jesus. Oh, see, they're saying the name of Jesus in public. They don't care whatever else they say or do. Like,
Yeah, and
oh, they said Jesus, and they just kind of like lose their shit over it. But then also,
because you
like,
can't do that in America, Tommy, and they're blazing a new and bold path.
right?
Because
Yeah, so,
it's a liberal hellhole here now. Like you can't just say your
yeah,
faith
godless.
out loud in America when you have freedom of religion. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
totally can. We just don't like it when you're a dick in public. Like,
Yeah, because one of the things I like to bring up, like when people say like, because they'll point to things like, oh, see, we elected Barack Obama, so we had a black president, so like racism isn't a thing anymore. They're not oppressed anymore. One of them was president, one of them. Yeah. Anyway, but at the same time, but Christianity, that's definitely being oppressed. Like when like literally every single president we've ever had was a professing Christian.
if anything,
So if
Catholics are being oppressed. We've only had one Catholic or two Catholic presidents.
I know at least JFK and Biden were Catholic. There may have been
Yeah, Biden's super
now,
Catholic.
now it's the Quakers. They only had one. And that was Nixon.
Well, they don't. Who?
Nixon.
The fuck?
I know. I didn't see that coming either.
No,
But
Quakers are cool as shit. And pacifists.
well, maybe he was a shitty Quaker. Maybe he was just in it for the oats. I don't know.
He was a bad Quaker. He's a cultural Quaker. That's what he was.
Kind of like how I'm a cultural Satanist. I'm just in it for like the activism.
Like Quakers are probably the least threatening Christians. Like because they're kind of like, you don't even need to be a Christian to come here. We're like, if we all agree that we're like seeking the light in the world, and you're generally in agreement on what that is, and we figure war isn't that, and
right, yeah, we assume, yeah,
poor people need more of it, like, yeah. So I don't know. That's messed up. He was a bad Quaker.
Yeah.
Bad Quaker.
But anyway, so all that to say, so if you can say that having one black president means black people are no longer being oppressed, like then how do you say that like literally every single president we've ever had has been a Christian, but you still want to say Christians are oppressed? And I know like a defense to that would say, well, they may have said they were Christian, but they weren't. They'll pick your least favorite politician, probably usually Obama, is like, well, he wasn't really a Christian. Like, okay, but that proves the point even more. Let's say, okay, I'll grant it. He wasn't really a Christian, but he saw the idea of being Christian as being so advantageous that he was willing to pretend to be a Christian. That is how not oppressed you are. Because they thought, oh, I'd better pretend to be one so they'll like me more. It's like,
yeah.
How do... yeah.
I had a thought. It went away.
No.
Something about being a Christian. Oh, the persecution. I think with the persecution that they're feeling, or that we were feeling, because I think I bought into that a little bit,
Oh yeah,
It's
me too. I
it's
confess.
that you're not allowed to, and when you're not allowed to insist the rest of the country follow like your version of like uh, Christian
Mhm.
constitutionalism stuff.
Yep.
They were like, well, for the majority, we like, and then we should just force everybody to, abide by the same rules we want. And
Hmm.
and it's yeah, and it's different when things are objectively bad for people, and like there's proof, and you're just like, proof be damned, ain't the Bible, and
Right. Yeah.
all the proof I need right here, thump thump.
Yeah. Yeah. But that just goes back to my question from earlier. It's like, okay, but then if you're not going to evaluate like proof and evidence about things, then why do you choose to believe a certain thing is the truth? And like, how do you test it? It's like when people say like when atheists or non-believers or even some Christians like will question God or question things that are in the Bible. It's like, well, that doesn't seem right. Like I don't know. This doesn't seem true or good to me. And like the response is like, well, how dare you question God? And it's like, well, I mean, isn't
Have
that
you
what?
read Psalm? Seems like he can take it.
Yeah, yeah. He encourages it maybe, um, but it's like, oh well, how do you know something can't be questioned until you first question it and examine it and then determine, oh, okay, this thing is unquestionable. It's like you have to start by questioning it.
Yeah, and even the Bible, there's a part where it says,
Yeah,
test God, or test the Spirit, based
yeah,
on,
but
I
but
don't know,
but
the
but
fruits
another
of it or
part says,
something. And then, yeah,
but
another
but
part, it's like,
but
don't.
another part says don't test it, and the Bible is univocal, or as Sean McDowell like said, univocal. Sorry, I just like picking on Sean, but um,
But
yeah, so
why does it
if you
sound like a,
and the thing is like he's a smart, like well-read dude, so yeah, that
sounds like
anyway.
navel, like belly button, like snipping the cord, but then there's also like a weird like sexual
Yeah,
vibe to that word too.
yeah. I have my univocal procedure. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, whoa,
Hmm.
oversharing.
It's like, hey babe, let's get univocal. Hmm.
See,
Anyway,
you're like, what is that? It sounds medical and sexual.
it's like, and I'm down, but I may need anesthesia. But but yeah, so like you said, like some parts of the Bible say test God and seem to encourage it, but other parts say don't. So Christians, like again, going back to the whole like cognitive dissonance and all the ways that can fuck your brain up, is trying to make those like the same message. So, but
Like it really is damned if you do, damned if you don't.
yeah, but yeah, we're supposed to question because
Yeah, it's kind of how Judaism did it, like all the time.
mhm, right, yeah, the whole like midrash thing, and as much as people like to malign science, like, but that's really how science works too. It's like discoveries in science are made because people question like the status quo or the conventional wisdom or even question their own observations or like this seems to be this way but I want to make sure so I'm going to like question and interrogate the hell out of all the everything that I can and yeah see what I come up
And I'm
with,
going to talk to 40 rabbis.
right? Yeah, I mean because if you're going to talk to any you might as well talk to 40.
Yeah, might as well. Hmm. What's the plural of, like geese are in like a gaggle of geese? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
What's a gaggle of rabbis? What's that called?
I don't know if there's anyone Jewish watching, please let us know, or also let us know if that's maybe unintentionally anti-Semitic.
Yeah. For some reason, would you say I have a plethora of rabbis? Oh yes, I would say you have a plethora.
Like,
It's a Three Amigos reference.
yes, yes. And also, they seen him. He was like, "Thank you so much for explaining to me the meaning of plethora. It means a lot." Dad jokes. Because I'm a dad. Yeah. But speaking of which, like real quick, like dad brag. Just found out my son got accepted to his high school.
Nice.
That'll be starting next year.
Is it bacon?
Mm-hmm. So yes, there's bacon. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of the things. Like obviously, like it's the same high school our daughter goes to, and what's funny is like so you can apply. So also real big, he was accepted into their honors program,
Nice.
which we're excited about. But the funny thing about that is like before they like send you your like official like acceptance letter to the high school, they interview you for acceptance into their honors program, which means okay, you've already been accepted. Now we're before we've told you you've been accepted. But so yeah. Oh, thanks, GIF. Yeah, we're proud. So
So he's already accepted, but then they did an interview anyway.
yeah, so it's like so he applied, but then like before they told him he was accepted, they brought him in for an interview for the honors program,
Okay.
which they only do to students who have already been accepted. But
Oh yeah.
so it's basically like an unofficial you're in. I mean, now we figure like he would be because you know like that his sister goes there and you know he's a sibling, so that's already like a pretty big indicator. And you know he's and and one of the big things is like with this school, like I love how much they emphasize like the community and culture in the school. Like they're very like much interested in like the students like as people. Like that's been really cool. But and I guess I remember like in his application, like they would like ask him questions about I don't remember what they were about, but I remember like he had me like proofread like his like little essay or whatever he wrote about like his goals or like how he his views on how he would fit into the community there and stuff. And I remember like I was reading some of the stuff he wrote, and I remember being like super impressed of like you're already like a way better person than I am, like because he was talking about like because he was talking about things like as far as like the community there and like how much he values like including everyone, like particularly like seeking out like the kids who maybe like aren't as included as much and like really trying to like intentionally bring them in and also like again in case people are curious like talking about oh applications like what's this all about like yes it is a private school and it's also actually a Catholic school, don't at me, but as much all my issues with the Catholic Church still stand, but also for what it's worth, like, so yes, it is a private school and they charge, but also like this school is like super generous with like scholarships and stuff. So like my daughter's like, she's on a full ride. My son probably will be too. So it's not like we're actually giving them any money for what it's worth, but also as far as Catholic schools
they're
go,
giving you money for what it's worth.
yeah, which, okay. But it's also, it's a Franciscan school. So it's as brands of Catholicism go, Franciscans actually,
I think it's the best.
Yeah.
They actually take about poverty and they usually preach in a brown linen robe with a rope for a belt.
Yeah. But also like, so both of my kids, they are still Christian, but like neither of them are Catholic, but it's also been, it's the school, like they're fine with that. They don't expect them to be, but what I loved about one of the things that my son wrote about like the different, like when they talked about like the Franciscan values and like the values of the school and like how, like what he thinks, I don't remember exactly what the prompt is, but I just remember he said his approach to that is basically going to like examine like the beliefs and values and see how they fit like with what he already believes. I was like, that is such a healthy approach because like he didn't take either extreme of, well, I'm not Catholic, so I'm just gonna dismiss all of your values, or like, well, this is my school now, I just need to accept everything. He's like, I'm gonna see how it fits with what I already believe and like examine it from there. I was like, that is awesome. So
yeah, I mean, see, like you can tell, like
Hmm.
we didn't fucking do that. Like when we were his age, that wasn't a thing people did. But like now, that's a thing kids do,
Hmm.
and so the world's
Yeah.
gonna be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually.
Yeah. Which
That's pretty
I
clear.
will. Yeah, and I will say like too. I mean, of course, I love like bragging on my kids as examples of how bright the future is. But with things like I said, they do both consider themselves Christian, but like they're far from. They're the kind of Christian like Speaking of like what Jimmy was like talking about earlier with your Fred Rogerses and your Jimmy Carters of the world. I think they're very much in that category. Is like I remember like when I was talking to my kids about like what they believed and what they consider themselves, and I remember my son being like, I think I consider myself Christian, but I don't have to believe in like young earth creationism, right? I can still believe in like science and evolution. Like, yes, you can. It's like, okay, good.
Also, depends who you ask.
Yes. But he asked me, so I said, yeah. Or also, I remember the first time I was talking to them about like discrimination against like, the LGBTQIA plus community and how messed up that is. And I remember like,
Oh yeah.
again, I was so happy with his reaction. This was back when he was like 9 or 10 or something. He was just like, he's like, yeah, I heard like people have like problems with people being gay. It's like, I didn't know people had a problem with that. Like, why do people have a problem with that? So yes. But anyway, yes. Pleasure as always. Thank you, Kip, for hanging out. You have a good
Yeah,
night.
thanks.
Yeah.
Have a
We'll be
good
back
night.
again next week. Hope you will be too. And we'll be in touch about having you on again sometime.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I guess just to give the people like there is at least some hope. And also what kind of like alleviated some of my concerns about the school, like people like certain like Catholic beliefs, especially when it comes to things like science or health or things like that. It was encouraging to know, like, first of all, like I know, like I said, not all the students at this school are Catholic, but apparently not even all the teachers are Catholic either. I was particularly pleased to hear from my daughter that her health class teacher was not Catholic. Especially when they came to the whole like human reproduction sexuality thing.
Yeah.
Now, from what she said, is like the way he presented it. He's like, it's like you could tell like he was very much okay. This is what I have to say because this is a Catholic school, but basically making it clear like I'm only saying this because I have to say this kind of stuff. So that
Well, and I'm not supposed to
also
tell you about these things.
yeah.
And like, so I won't. And it's just in writing.
Yep. And also, apparently, her biology teacher was not Catholic. But I guess the Catholic Church, I guess in general with evolution, I guess they aren't as
No,
yeah,
they're all on board with evolution.
yeah,
There might be some fundamentalist Catholics that aren't, but like Catholics have been talking about um, Genesis being poetic, and I think there's way more content in it as a poetic thing.
hmm. Oh, for sure, yeah.
Like there's things in there about the human condition and like
Hmm.
it's definitely more of a wisdom story uh,
Yep.
than a here's how it went.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But yeah. Oh, what one more thing?
Because how was there another town that like Cain went to?
Yeah, like
Oh,
how
what,
did he?
there's another town? Was there another Genesis? What the fuck happened? Like,
Yeah, it's like he's like because after like he killed Abel, and he's like, oh, but I'm afraid if you send me away, I'll come to another city, and the people in that city will kill me. It's like the only people who exist are you and your parents. It's like because there were only four of you, and you killed one. It's like,
well, and the bad guy going to the city, like, tell me this was a story written by like goat farmers, like,
oh yeah,
and
yeah. I mean,
not city people.
that's all through like the Pentateuch, even like the story of like the Exodus, like
Yeah, city
this thing I've
bad,
heard, like there's
country
a
good.
huge theme of yes, being out in the wild, good, going into a city, but like Moses, like that was part of his like parting words to the Israelites before God made him go off and die.
I
But
mean, it's not a mystery why rural people in the U.S. like it's way easier for them to be Christian than people in the city. It's because
interesting.
that's who it's
Yeah.
written for. That was the target audience. Like country good, city bad.
Well, at least the Old Testament. You think the New Testament as well, or
No, New Testament was more. Well, Jesus was less safe in the cities, so there's still a little bit of it.
yeah, there's that too. Yeah,
Um,
I think the New
but
Testament was a lot more like
Greeky.
physical. Yeah, that too. Maybe it was maybe more like physical versus spiritual, like a little like
Mhm.
Gnostic influence, but
Yeah, there's a lot.
Gnosticism, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and the so like the New Testament books are I think are less wisdom literature and more like philosophy literature. It's like
Hmm.
philosophy
Yeah.
symbolism.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
there are some wisdom pieces in there, like when Jesus is like, "This is the parable you need to understand anything else I ever tell you," and it's it's
Yeah,
the parable of the sower of the seed and all that.
but then he
Um,
also says, "Oh, the reason I speak in parables is so people won't understand." It's like, oh, thanks, Jesus. Um,
I kind of feel like maybe with, if he was saying something good there, so that, let's just assume that. What I blanked a bit.
that's okay. That's
What did Jesus say?
he speaks in parables, like specifically so people
Oh,
won't understand.
I so the way I think like that could be taken is also like so they wouldn't understand more than they can handle. Like their ability to see determines how much they hear.
Yeah, except, and again, my brain like might consider this pedantic, but I'm like, but this is what he said. But after that, like he actually said, like the reason he didn't, he said like I speak in parables so otherwise they might understand and then believe and then like receive salvation or whatever. So it's almost like he was like specifically trying to keep them from receiving something good. Was like his reasoning, which to me
Which is
seems
so weird because it doesn't blend. See, that's why I think maybe there's a translation problem. Not 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 because I want it to be good, but it's out of character with the rest of his character in the story.
depends which gospel. I mean, Mark, like Jesus was all about like being like secretive and like hard to understand and
And like planting a seed, but he wasn't about him and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. And I think that was from Mark when he said that.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, it depends. It depends which gospel you're reading, like what Jesus is up to. So yeah, which again, you miss all that wonderful nuance and all the different things the writers are trying to say with their versions of it when you're trying to like cram it all together and make it say one
Yeah,
thing. Like
it really
you're
decreases
missing
the
the point.
importance
Yeah,
of the gospels when you're because the stories about Jesus don't play well with it being factual. I mean, there's no description of him. It he functions more as like an avatar for an idea in the story or
yeah,
philosophy than
mhm,
a real person. Just the way it's written. Um,
yeah,
so that's why I think we're in agreement that like Jesus was a real person, but in the Gospels is more of a vehicle
yes,
for ideas or
yeah. Yeah, the way I view him is like he was a real person, but I think like what was written about him is like so heavily mythologized. At least to me, it's like it's almost like he, like the Jesus in the Gospels, almost like might as well not be a real person. 'Cause it's like, yeah, but again, like we don't know for sure, so it's
it's kind of like the Jesus character in the stories was a vehicle for uh apologists for the idea of blending Roman and Hebrew cultures, because you had
Yeah.
in Jesus you had a blending of a lot of Greek philosophy, Greek symbolism, like from other religions from that part of the world, like Dionysus. Then also some like stuff that definitely has its roots in Judaism.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And he was kind of like the combination.
Yep.
Jesus, the white Jew.
Yes, the one.
Well, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like
Yeah.
it was a westernizing of a West Asian culture, like West Asian Semitic culture.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, that's good, but have you met white people?
Oh, let's Hellenize the fuck out of this shit. And Christianity.
You know what makes everything better? A bunch of white people show up who weren't there before.
It's like, hey, you wouldn't have polka without us.
You wouldn't happen to have any untamed wildernesses around here, would you?
Because we're really into those for some reason recently.
Yeah, because we like to call them untamed. Because then the people there, like the people who already live in there, well, they didn't tame it, so they don't own it.
Yeah. Then we feel less. Then we feel less bad about killing all of them.
You need a bunch of white people to break that land spirit. Break it in like a horse.
Oh shit. It's funny because it's not funny because it's true.
For anybody who's interested, there's a show on Netflix called American Primeval. It's a 6-episode limited series about the Western frontier, and so there were like, native peoples who already lived there, and then the Mormons came in, right? But then like the U.S. government started coming in, and the Mormons were like, "You're taking our land. Our culture is under threat." Native Americans are just like kind of like going, "The fuck is happening?" It's a great show. Gory, good story. Also, this is like real Mormon history. They're not real happy about being in a show because they had a militia and they were like going on like Indian raids and pretending to be natives and like, yeah. And just like kind of a bunch of white folk trying to like get people all upset and afraid, so they would leave the Mormons to their wonderful wifery. And also Brigham Young, apparently a real dick.
Yeah, that checks out. Yeah.
And kind of the guy behind the Mormon like militia massacres and stuff that were happening. But name a university after him.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's also where a lot of our 3-letter agencies get their employees from, because they are very hard to blackmail, and it's because it's part of their religion that they don't drink, they don't do drugs. Family is everything, so you have that leverage against them. Like if you threaten their families, they'll do whatever you want. Isn't that nice of our government to have those ideas?
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently they're overrepresented in intelligence agencies. They're super dedicated. They believe America is the new Jerusalem. So
yeah, pretty much.
The new Zion, a whole country is a city. Bunch of big fucking golden Borg cube gonna land on the United States. It's a new Jerusalem coming down. I just realized that this sounds like the description of a golden Borg ship.
Yeah, pretty much. Resistance is futile.
It's
Yeah.
a
Yep.
cuboid city. It's made of gold.
Fuck. Oh,
That's real. I'm glad we were part of a thing that was trying to get that to happen sooner. It's like it should have been in the
yeah.
brochure, you fuckers.
Well, that's the thing. Like at a certain point, if it wasn't the brochure, it would have made me even more excited. But yeah. Oh, yeah. But anyway,
I
there go
think
my
where they
nickel again.
would have lost me at the time is like I'd be like, really, like an actual cube from the sky. Like
No, I like
as
I
a
was
fact,
totally
that's what we're going with.
like I totally believed in that. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was always like, well, that'll be something when we find out what that really means. But you were in the crowd that was like, we know what that means, and it will be cool.
Yep. And man, won't it be great when everyone else finds out that we were right?
They'll all be in that wine press going, you really got us. Man, you guys were right. So right. Our bad.
Oh,
I
fuck.
think they won't care at that point. I don't know.
Yeah, they're just grapes. Anyway,
Just grapes. You
yeah,
know.
we get to drink them later after they're fermented or something.
We didn't fix that problem with our Echo yet. Echo,
Oh,
lights on.
mm-mm. Thank you. All right. Well, any other closing thoughts or anything else you wanted to hand gesture with? Here?
No. I mean, when you said hand gesture, it reminded me of how Trump's dance looks like he's like jerking off like two huge dongs.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
or this one. It's like
yeah.
the YMCA. Also, the Village People played at his inauguration ball. Or whenever they played at his celebration. I don't know. He was on TV like all fucking day. Also, one of the biggest bands he could have had or had an interest in. Super gay. And his favorite song is like, isn't it about like gay guys banging younger gay guys or something?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The YMCA song, Village People.
Is it? I don't know.
Okay, Village People did. I don't know. I don't know either. But the band was all gay guys, right? And like,
If you're saying, I wonder if Trump knows that though. That's.
I think he does. He was friends with Jeffrey Epstein, like good friends, and Epstein apparently just had a thing for people having sex. And like it didn't matter.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Epstein had a picture of Bill Clinton in a dress, like blown up. I think he had turned into a painting, and it was like in his house. Like that's.
Did it have any stains on it?
No.
Anyway. Well, on that note,
Bill Clinton's like, I will be my own Monica.
it's like I will stain my own dress. That's the American way. Man, well that's a turn I did not expect, but I probably should have. TBH. All right. Well, thanks everyone for again like like not large but solid, consistent amount of viewers tonight, and we appreciate that, especially the interaction, especially like Kiff and Jimmy. Good to talk with you again.
Not large, but solid and consistent.
Like me. But speaking of Jimmy, remember.
I just chode popped in my head.
All right. Well, apart from that image, speaking of Jimmy, his show's on tomorrow night, right here. I think he's on mainly on YouTube. I don't know if he's still streaming on the Facebook anymore, but yeah, look him up on YouTube. Jimmy Ligon, JI. Well, here, let me find one of his comments. Yeah, here's the most recent one. Yeah, again, appreciating the Monty Python. Yeah, so look up Jimmy Ligon on the YouTube tomorrow night, same time, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. At least I think that's what you're doing, Jimmy. If you're still on, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, right here on YouTube, great show called Unreligious, which I am a part of every now and then when I can swing it. It's a good time. So yeah. Other than that, yeah. Any other thoughts or parting words or
May your things and stuff be forever with your people.
forever and ever, or however long it takes? Amen. All right. Thanks
That was a
again,
Catholic
everyone,
thing.
for yes, and also with you or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a great retort to like an insult from someone. You're like, and also with you.
That's what I like to say when people say it, like especially like on May the 4th. You know, they say May the Force be with you. I say and also with you, and they laugh, so I keep doing it. So that's how I roll. Anyway, see you back here next week. But yeah, remember all the like, comment, subscribe where applicable. Share with whoever you feel comfortable sharing, and yeah, we appreciate everyone who watches, whether you interact or not. Yeah, thanks for being here, and we will see you next week.
So long.